Hey, welcome back to Crimes and Closets. This is Christy in my closet in St. Louis.
And this is Beth in my closet in North Carolina.
This is Wes visiting the closet in North Carolina.
And I'm Emery, and I'm actually in the basement in St. Louis, not a closet at all.
Niche.
This is Isaiah. I'm in the basement also.
What's up?
Happy Monday, everyone.
Happy Monday, everyone. Everyone. The gang's all here.
Yeah, we've got a whole crew here. One of which, this is Isaiah. This man right here is the person who composed and produced, I guess, that's all the same thing, our intro song that we have been using for how many years? 4 years? I don't know how long we've been using it. 3 years?
4.
When he did it, he was not a man. He was a
No.
minor. Might have had some child labor issues
Oh,
filming
no.
him there, but we'll worry about
Did you
that
guys-
later.
Yeah.
Did you guys ever
Talk about
pay
that
him
later.
for this?
Anyway, what'd you say?
Did you guys ever pay Isaiah?
No, still waiting on that check right now.
Keep waiting. I think that's what I just heard.
We just wanted, since we are closing out soon, we wanted to introduce him and thank him for doing that for us and allowing us to use it for so long.
Sure.
Yes, it has definitely been an integral part of the pod every Monday. You start us off, you close us out every week.
And
So-
it's my ringtone on my phone.
Oh, really? For him or just in general?
Everyone.
Love that. Did not know that.
Yeah.
I didn't even know people called each other anymore, but that's
Yeah,
great.
I mean, I never have it on, so I don't hear it that often.
I think since Isaiah's still waiting on his commission, I think we should put a shameless plug. If anybody's looking for intro music, Isaiah's your guy.
Ah, there you
Yeah.
go.
Experienced.
Little side
And you can
hustle.
hustle.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
I mean, you can tell him how hard your day's been already. We were just talking about that a second ago. Talk about hustle.
yeah, he's hustling. He's hustling. He's making the money now. Anyway.
Trying to.
Well, thank you, Isaiah. We
Yep.
appreciate it and we love you.
Thank you,
Good job,
guys.
buddy.
Thanks,
Love you,
Isaiah.
man.
Love
Nice
you.
job.
Love you, buddy.
All right.
See you, dude.
See you later.
See ya.
And do you want to explain why these other two
Yeah.
handsome young men are here?
So it was requested that we do a husband episode before we turn our mics off, and our two gentlemen were very nice enough to oblige us and join us, and we gave them 2 cases, one of my cases, one of Christy's cases. They listened to both 2 whole hours. Pretty impressive. And I mean, they hear us talk enough as it is, so the fact that they did it in their spare time it's pretty neat. And they're controversial cases, they're unsolved cases, they're cases that the families are fighting for answers for. The families and the public are fighting for answers for these dead, both young men. So we're going to get their opinions. And you need to go back and listen. Should we tell them? Let's tell them what the cases are, because
Oh, yeah, in case they want to listen to it first before they listen to
yeah,
it.
because that's going to be really confusing. So the first case we're going to cover is Grant Solomon. So we covered this case in December of 2023. It's season 5, episode 6. It's an hour long. If you haven't heard that, stop what you're doing, go back, listen to that one, and we're going to get the husband's opinion on it. The next one is Mark Himebaugh's disappearance. It came out just a year ago, March 4th, 2024. It's season 5, episode 17. So these are all cases that we've covered in our last season, which was season 5. And they just stay on our brains and in our hearts. So go back and listen to those and write down your opinions, and we'll see if these gentlemen of ours agree.
Okay.
I have to give a really quick personal update. Am I allowed to do that?
Oh, right, yeah. Are you safe?
There's no one hiding in my basement.
Your crawl space?
In my crawl space, I mean, yes. If you listened last week, I got super freaked out because I heard a noise, and there's been homeless people living in people's crawl spaces in our area. And I was like, well, that's it. We've got a man. We've got a man down there with a plan. My dog heard it. My dog today, I will say, was out in the yard barking at something. And when I went out to see what he was barking at that vent.
Yeah, see, he probably was like, I need to see for myself that there's nothing under there.
Well, Wes went and looked, and there was no signs of life.
Well, you need to bring your dog out there and show him. because otherwise he might bark at it every single time he's out
Well,
there.
yeah, maybe he just barked because it freaked me out so bad. He's
I
such
mean,
a
you said
good
there's no
dog.
sign of life, but you actually don't want someone under there who's not alive. That would be a different kind of problem. So you might want to check for signs of
Whole
life
different set
and
of
signs of
smells.
death.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. My house. Anyway. Okay. Anyway, so I just wanted to update everybody on that. I will have posted already, and because I know you guys wouldn't want me to wait for 2 weeks, but there's no one down there that we're aware of. So I wanted to say that.
Okay, good.
So if we want to get into cases,
Okay, we'll get to it here in a second.
let's do it.
Okay, so we are going to start with Grant Solomon, right? Yes, that's what
Yes.
we just discussed. Okay. So if you guys went back and listened, or if you didn't, and you just need a little bit of a refresher, Grant Solomon was an 18-year-old who was accidentally, and I can do quotes here because we're recording video.
I know. By the way, if you don't follow us on YouTube, go follow us on YouTube because you will be able to see videos. Spoiler.
It's possible
plug.
you might be able to see it on Spotify because Spotify has video option. I just don't know if we're allowed to upload it. I have to look at it when we do it, but
Okay.
it's possible that they might have it. But yes, for sure on YouTube it'll be there. So anyway, Grant Solomon was an 18-year-old who was accidentally run over by his truck, his own truck. He went to meet his father at a air quotes at a baseball place to practice with him, and his dad was
estranged father.
his estranged father. Yes, I didn't really. Yeah, I should start with that. This man, his wife was allegedly raped, and that's how they had their first child. But then her family encouraged her to get married to him. Remember, because she didn't want to. And then there was allegations of him sexually abusing their daughter as well. They had 2 kids, Grant and Grace. And so they were estranged. They didn't want to see him. They were fighting seeing him. But one day, Grant agreed to go with his dad to this baseball place to practice with him. And when they both pulled up, his dad was still in the car reading his email. And Grant was getting out of his car to get his baseball bag. And apparently his car just started rolling backwards and dragged him down a hill and on top of him and dragged him all the way down. And he passed away. And so it was ruled accidental, like pretty much right off the bat. And they didn't really do much investigating with it. And so that's part of the issue with this case. And the controversial part is that there was also evidence that was shown that his car was in drive at the time. If you guys remember the little black box or whatever that's in a car, I didn't realize they were in cars too, but it was in drive at the time. And I want to say somebody had pushed the gas and the brake. Like there was evidence of
And-
all of that. Oh, and steering.
And moved the steering. Yeah, that's what I
Yes.
feel like. Let's see if what are your all's problems
Okay.
with it?
Yeah.
Like
So anyway,
with them
there's-
ruling it an accident.
Yes. Do you think it was an accident, first of all? Because there's people who believe that the dad had something to do with it. Nothing has ever come of it. And that's what people are fighting for. But when you guys listened to it, what was your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I think like the circumstances of the actual quote accident and death and all that, like it's hard to disassociate that from the whole origin story of this guy as sort of a highly manipulative, drugged his not even girlfriend at the time, got her pregnant, and then eventually had this sort of extended relationship, including another kid and all of the other accusations that have sort of come out since then. Like, it's hard to sort of just look at this in isolation and say, like, yep, that was just a horrible accident, putting all of that aside. But if you could put all of that aside and just think about it logistically, if my car is in a parking lot and I don't have it in park and it starts to roll, like, I'm either getting out of the way or like quickly jumping into the driver's seat and pushing the brakes and putting it in park. Like, that's what's happening.
If your door's open, you can do that. Probably. Well,
Right.
you could probably do it even if it
And if
was.
the door's locked, I'm
It's
not
going
gonna like
fast.
throw myself underneath it and try to like hold on to it with my hands. I mean, this is like a young, athletic kid. So I just think that is really not feasible. And then,
Well, he definitely could have moved out of the way.
Mhm.
yeah, like that, the thing was not going fast enough not to get out of the way, you know? And so, and then the circumstances just around where it ended up and how and all that just seem all really fishy. There's a lot of kind of unbelievable, far-fetched kind of explanations you'd have to kind of say like, oh, yep, just a freak accident. So, but I don't know. What about you, Wes?
I think it's an unfortunate set of circumstances that weren't investigated. So this is a kid. It's a truck. It's not a heavy truck. I mean, it's a truck, but if the truck rolled over him, it's not going to drag him. He's not a guy like my size where, a truck is going to catch me at the differential and drag me down the rocks. I think the whole thing starts falling apart with the father's story that he was getting his gear out of the bed of the truck when he always kept it in the back seat of the truck. So if you're starting your story with a lie, the whole thing's probably a lie, allegedly. And if he, they didn't really investigate the scene. They're like, oh, the truck's down here, body's under it, must have got dragged and crushed. But there's blood on the rocks up ahead. His clothes weren't damaged. No scratches on the body like it had been dragged. If I had to like make a guess at what might have happened, would be that, he turned around to get his bag and someone caved his head in with a rock. And then someone guided the vehicle to a place where it was plausible it could have happened and then put him where the truck was. So I think it was very staged. Then, the lies start compounding when you look at, well, he's getting his stuff out of the bed of the truck, but he actually keeps it in the back. Well, there are these guys helping me, but nobody ever found these guys that were helping him. The whole thing seems very manufactured and it doesn't line up.
I will say, I did look up recently when we decided these were the cases we were going to do, that there was another kid, well, I call him a kid because he was young, working at the baseball facility that day. And he came outside and he did see those 3 workers that the dad talked about by the car.
Interesting. Okay.
However, he said he came out, saw this whole thing going on, went back inside because he was there setting up and called his boss and was like, hey, there's some crazy stuff going on here. You need to come here now. Because he's like, I don't need to be dealing with this. And when he came, so he did that. When he came back, those guys were gone. And it was just Aaron on the phone at the top of the hill. So somebody else now has seen, he's recently-ish come forward to say that he saw them.
The other thing is, let's just say the car rolled down the hill. As a father, whether the keys are in it or not, I'm going to move the truck. It's getting picked up off my kid.
Point.
Off of
So,
them?
yeah, I'm going to pick it up. We'll figure this out. But the other thing is, the truck rolled down, so the keys were in it, the power's on. Why would you not back the truck off your kid if he was pinned under it? There's so many things that don't lie. And, to be on the phone and you just his callousness and the way he laid out the scenario to the wife. This is how he looked when he was laying there and he laid on the ground and imitated his kid. Nobody that lost a child is going to put themselves in an emotional position that's that callous unless they just were indifferent to what happened.
In front of their mother.
Right.
Not
Yeah.
only did you just do
There's some other reasons that he might be somewhat indifferent to what happened. If some of the other alleged things.
You can talk about that. I mean,
I'll let Emery dive in on that part.
Well, no, I think anytime we listen to these stories that involve a parent being accused of taking the child's life, and then there's sort of this far-fetched explanation that just seems to be a bridge too far. You just take it back to we're parents. We have kids. Our kids are absolute treasures and precious to us, right? And pressure and, terrible pains in the butt sometimes. No, but they're precious to us. They're
Yes.
everything, right? And so in that scenario, you're sprinting down the hill, you're wrapping your arms around, you're trying to move the truck, you're trying to get the body into a place where it could be resuscitated, you're screaming on the phone, you're there's an urgency that would be unlike anything you've ever experienced. So when you get these situations where it's like he's calling from the top of the hill, but not really going down to check it out, or like it just, I mean, those are not the actions that you would take. You would not stay away from that scene because that is your child, like in danger, hurt. Like you're in there, Trent. So
At the very least, like laying on the rocks next to the car. If you don't want to move him, like with your hand, like holding him, like I
Yeah.
got you. We're getting.
and I'm
home.
on the phone and I'm saying, should I try to move the truck? Like, what should I do? Is like you're pleading for any guidance, support, and like get here soon, please. Like, I mean, like what would be like a greater sense of urgency than your child hurt and you can see it. You're doing everything you can in that situation.
Well,
So,
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Sorry.
no, you got it, man.
No, the other thing was like the callousness of the conversation. Like, I think he aspirated. Like, who has time for clinical like terminology? There's a truck on your kid, and you're reaching for words. Like, I think he aspirated. Well, how about like you get down there and figure it out? Like, I don't know. It just seems a little.
Well, I think the biggest explanation for why he was, in fact, so like not frantic is
It's his plan.
because he knew he was dead.
It was allegedly planned.
He allegedly, possibly, could have already known that.
I will say this too: he was alive when that other kid came out of the facility.
See, that's terrible. That makes me even more upset.
Something in that article made me say that he said he went down there and he knew he was alive at that time. So I don't know at what point.
I think it's really unfortunate that we don't know who these two men are, because I would really love to hear from them what his demeanor was. Like, was he saying, "Help me pull my kid out," and they were saying, "No, leave him there"?
Right, and
Like-
why haven't they come forward? Like, unless there's something
they
nefarious
witnessed an
going
alleged
on.
murder.
Yeah, like they saw what really happened and he paid them off to leave. Like, I don't know. This is my
And
opinion.
he's a famous what wasn't he a famous?
He was a newscaster, yeah,
Newscaster?
in that area. Yeah, pretty well known for, I think, like 12 years or something like that.
The other thing too is like, who's to say those guys weren't accomplices in it?
Well, that's what she just said.
Well, I
Oh,
mean,
after the
the fact, yeah. But yeah,
Well,
maybe.
no, like maybe they could have been involved. Like, it's kind of weird that they. I mean, unless there's a reason they can't talk to authorities, like maybe they're worried about, they have had a criminal record, or maybe they're, have some other legal pending issues that they don't want to be involved in it.
Yeah.
Or maybe they were part of it,
Yeah, allegedly.
allegedly.
If you think about, though, again, we've all listened to so many of these stories, including the ones that get solved, and it's like the evidence on the clothes, the evidence inside the truck, the evidence on the rock, like, and there's nothing, like there's nothing, like the clothes were destroyed. I don't know. I mean, there should be evidence that the dad was in the truck or not. Like, we don't know that. What's up with bloody rocks? Like,
We do know
the
that
mom
somebody
grabbed those. Just all very kind of haphazard, it feels like. And that's what gets really frustrating in these.
Well, because it was ruled an accident right away. And why was it so quickly ruled an accident?
Right. Well, that's where the Bubba system comes in, right? Like, this guy is of some.
What do you mean when you say Bubba system? What's that?
Okay, so
like a Southern thing.
it's a Southern thing. So, like, he knows people. Like, he's of some local celebrity. They're like, okay, this guy's a good guy. Like, suffered a terrible loss. Like, we're not going to put him through the emotional stress of pressing him on this. And they kind of took a country look at this. I mean, it's rural Tennessee. It's, it's just northeast of Hendersonville. So it's a very rural part of Tennessee. So whatever celebrity this guy had, it's a very rural celebrity, but people knew who he was and said, oh, this guy would never do anything to his own kid, and really didn't take the time to look at the whole picture. The only one who looked at it was the mom, and she was made to be crazy. And the whole time, like, that's the other piece of it too, is like the judicial system failed on, like, if you look at it, it's just a failure from one end to the other. Like, if you look at the law enforcement side, there was no due diligence. It was just like, oh, this was an accident. Like, we don't need to go any further with this. And then the judicial system put the mom in the crazy box. And here's a woman who started a relationship with being raped and pressed into a relationship that
Allegedly.
allegedly. And, there's things going on that the son was probably looking to confess to that would put the dad in a really bad light. And, he had reached that age where he thought he would be taken seriously as an adult. And there was a threat to him maintaining his freedom, allegedly. So we keep saying allegedly because apparently this guy's a little bit litigious, but, I just can't imagine someone who, went through this effort. And I can't feel, you just kind of hope that the system isn't that inept that not only the police miss it, but the judicial system falls short.
The public.
Yeah. I got to think that it's intentional because you like to think people aren't this stupid.
Well, and I know that we were trying to keep it separate from all the other stuff that happened before, like just looking at it that way, which to me, it's still suspicious.
Sus.
Yeah, it's still sus. No cap.
Mhm.
But
I don't know you. I don't know you
no one's
guys.
capping in this.
Yeah.
But I can't help but go back to, because a lot of my information was from like a court document of all of those mental health specialists that said she was like, yes, she showed sign of depression, but she took medicine and it was fine. Like she was not suicidal when she went into the psych ward that time when she said he tried to kill her, but he said she tried to kill him herself. And, like all these things that happened to her in his favor. Like you're saying, this Bubba system, and then the school not believing Grace, and like all of those things were like, well, because he was scratching their back, ooh, allegedly.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think no one that listens and reads anything can argue that everyone took his side.
Mm-hmm.
Well, here's the other thing too. If he is a local news reporter, he's in a position to maybe tank a story on police brutality or cover up a domestic violence thing that he could have covered, and said, he might have had an ace up his sleeve when it came to law enforcement that, he knew he was going to play the card down the road, and he played his card.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I just can't think that a police officer would come to a death and be like, yeah, he tripped, fell, and his own truck ran over him, and nothing suspicious here, nothing to see.
And also, the way he was positioned, I'm sorry. If you're getting dragged, first of all, if he was in the back and he gets pushed down backwards, he's getting dragged with his head back towards the back of the truck. And he was found with his head in between the front two tires.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's somebody hitting you forward.
I think the bigger issue, though, is like if you look at the picture of the truck, the clearance underneath of it, a kid his age is just going to go, like maybe a wheel would run over you, but that's not going to kill you either.
It's not going to drag you.
Yeah, it's not going to drag you. So like just the differential, you're looking at probably like 10 inches of clearance, 18-year-old kid that's going to go right over top of him. Like he's not getting dragged by that truck. And then nobody looked on the ground to see if it was a gravel parking lot. It'd be pretty clear to figure out like, oh, here's the drag mark. You know what I mean? Like,
I think it was asphalt.
It was asphalt, but there was no drag marks on like the grass that was on the clearing.
Well, you'd still have like clothing debris, rubber from shoes, blood, hair, a lot of other stuff.
Right.
But the fact that it was just like, yeah, that sucks. His own truck ran him over and dragged him down the hill and mysteriously placed him in a weird spot, and dad didn't see anything or do anything to help him. Like, there's too many things. And then the lie part of it. Like if you start something with a lie, the whole thing's a lie. Mm-hmm. So like, why would you start with that? So I don't know.
Also going back to, sorry, Beth, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that my whole issue with the entire case, and it gets overlooked and I don't think people talk about it enough, is the black box of it all.
Well, yeah,
like
that's
that
huge.
is static information. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? Or concrete information. Like it doesn't, you can't flub that. That's not somebody pushed the gas, somebody pushed the brake, and somebody turned the wheel.
Yeah.
While the truck was rolling over Grant.
And it went from like 14 miles an hour to 3 miles an hour or something like that. Like
which 14 range is a lot. Like I can't run 14 miles an hour. I mean, I know it's not that fast for a car.
No, but like, that wasn't a very big difference or distance for it to gain that speed going backwards.
No, somebody pushed the gas. They know that. They know that somebody pushed the gas.
Right.
at this exact time that he was being run over. They know somebody pushed the brake. They know somebody turned the steering wheel. When you told me that, you can listen back into the case and you were like, well, here's what the black box says. And I was like, boom.
Yeah.
Got him. That is concrete evidence, in my opinion. Why aren't we talking about that? Why isn't law enforcement talking about that? You can't fake that. Go test it. Go remake, redo a reenactment of the situation and try to fake the black box. You cannot.
The other piece of this is I don't think a kid his age that's an athlete could get run over by a truck just because the dad jumped in it and floored it. Like, even if he had his back turned, it would knock him down and roll over him. It probably wouldn't drag him. The reality is, like, if his dad got in the truck, he's not going to stand in front of the vehicle. He's not going to stand behind it. Like, he's probably already suspicious of this estranged father. He's thinking about, taking a case to authorities on his sister with his dad, allegedly. So I don't think the truck was actually the implement that was used. I think it was
to cover it up.
It was to cover it up. I think it was, they picked in. That was the other thing too, is they talked about blood being on the rocks. I would probably guess the rock was a blunt force trauma and the truck was the cover up, and that's why the placement of the body is weird, because the truck wasn't what killed him. He was bludgeoned, placed, and then the truck was driven and positioned over him to create a scene.
And to your point, I've been saying all along, the way it would have had to go backwards down that hill, I don't know why the bed of the truck wouldn't have just stopped, like how it would have gone down and like come back up. And, the way it's laying, like I feel like if it went down that hill, it would have stopped on those rocks and not gone all the way down. So that the way it is, it looks more like it was driven into those rocks, not.
Well, I mean, Emery, you could take it and talk a little bit about like what he was looking at, turning 18 and like the research and what he was going to do as far as bringing a case against his dad. Like, you read that research like I did. I mean, what more motive, like murder, you're looking for motive. What more motive do you need? And I don't know if you guys want to cover some of the background on what was going on there, but if there was ever a motive, that would definitely be one.
Well, apparently he was allegedly about to, he told his sister that he would testify against and go to the police to back her stories up of the abuse, and say what he has seen once he turned 18, once he was an adult. And this was right after, like, what, days
like
or a month after his 18th birthday that this happened. And so that is the thought behind his motive, was he was about to take him down. His own son was about to take him down.
I think maybe we can sort of go into that. A couple things I would just say is, one, when we kind of assume that there's this massive conspiracy and all of these co-conspirators and that he's got so much influence on everybody in the community, like that to me, that is like a stretch. We don't know that. We know that he was at one time in the media. I don't believe he was in the media at all during this time. So like, we should probably just be really clear about that. I think he's been in like financial services for the last decade or so. This just happened in 2020. Is that when it happened?
Oh,
something like that.
No. But go ahead.
Relatively recent. So anyway, not sure about that. I just think very simply, this was not well investigated at the time. And if you don't investigate it well at the time, then the truck gets taken away, the clothes get destroyed, the car gets driven by the dad. Like, I mean, and then you lose everything, right? It rains and stuff washes away. Like, the mom's out there trying to grab rocks. I mean, this is just such a classic case of like, almost like, oh yeah, that was just a terrible accident. Okay, we're done. Like, let's clean it up and move on. And that is super unfortunate, because once you lose that evidence, you can't recreate it, Of course, though, there's also, I think, hope, and the hope, and we've seen really cool examples of, some new detective comes into, on the scene, or a new sergeant or whatever, and they're feeling pressure from the community to take another look at this, and they go look at it, and they do find those people who were witnesses, or they do find someone who's willing to kind of speak up or they do find someone from the, funeral home who says like we were paid to destroy whatever it is. And so, the kind of really amazing thing about this kind of, genre of podcast and just like community journalism in general is it does create pressure, and that pressure can create hopefully different outcomes. I mean, this is extremely tragic. This kid's whole life is extremely tragic, and his sister's life extremely tragic, and yet all we can kind of see is pictures and to read some of the story, but that family seems so strong, the mom and the sister, and so brave to kind of go through this, and even in light of such tragedy. And what frustrates me the most, and this is not allegedly, but like this guy Aaron, he's walking around, right? He's walking freely, and he's by all accounts tortured at least a couple of people and taken another's life allegedly, and that's pretty brutal. So I hope that this is one that kind of stays on people's minds and on platforms like this, and who knows, it's one Netflix documentary away from, a whole new different level of energy put behind it. And I guess we can always kind of hope for that stuff too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that too. Oh, sorry.
That's good.
I just, from everything that we have read, and, we're not doing a normal episode this week, obviously, but like Grant was a really cool kid.
Mm-hmm.
And talented
Mm-hmm.
and kind and smart.
So
and
handsome.
So handsome. He was a cutie.
Mm-hmm.
Christy called him, he's like a stud at baseball. That's what you said in the episode.
A baseball stud.
Like, all right, chill out.
He was,
chill out,
and he was a really good son, and he was a really good brother,
Mm-hmm.
and he had a really strong mom, I think, who is still really strong, like you said, Emery, too. And so I appreciate you just like, let's remember that. Let's remember that we can get all fired up and we can get all pointing fingers and accusing and judging and alleged, but the whole point of it is that there's a kid who lost his life, who did not get fair treatment for whatever reason. And that's what we need to talk about.
I don't think you could say it any better than what Emery and Beth just laid it out. I think, I'll get back to being the detail guy because, like, it still bugs the crap out of me. But the car thing, like they said, the allegation that the car was faulty, we've got the black box information that was steered, it was accelerated. But then the dad drove his vehicle around for a while. After, like, would you get in a faulty vehicle that just killed your son?
I wouldn't get in a vehicle that killed my son.
No, period.
No.
Yeah, that's what I'm
like
saying.
that,
Like,
that's not a car I'm going to even look at ever again.
You could probably not bring yourself to sit in without being sick. And then he drove around in it. So this is the vehicle that killed your son. You tooled around in it. You claimed that it was faulty and caused his death. Then you had it totaled. And then this is the other thing too. Like, let's look at this guy, right? Like, he's some sort of reporter, somewhat
Prior to.
Yeah, somewhat intelligent, like he's in the financial market. He's not an idiot. If a car really failed and killed your son, there's going to be a lawsuit. There's going to be an investigation. There's going to be, what does that mean? If it was a Toyota truck, you think Toyota's not going to be buying that vehicle back? I don't remember what the truck manufacturer was, but you don't think the manufacturer's going to want that truck back if it was alleged that it malfunctioned and ran somebody over? Like, they're going to want that back. There's going to be I can't remember the name of the agency, but there's a road agency for cars that fail that cause injury. This would end up on an NTSB report, and they'd be digging into this if that was real. Mm-hmm. And who didn't open an NTSB report if that was allegation? And then the fact that you total it to get rid of the evidence that was never faulty, allegedly. Mm-hmm. Like, come on, like that. There's so many things, like I said, I think that's probably his demeanor towards the entire outcome, like laying down and mimicking his dead son on the ground, driving a vehicle around that killed his son allegedly. Like, it just seems like a very callous approach to something that would destroy any other parent. Mm-hmm. So why is it so easy for him to do all those things?
Yeah.
Declining an autopsy. I mean, again, that's like sense of urgency. Like, what?
That's
if
such a
your
good point.
son
I can't believe we
dies,
haven't
like,
talked about that yet.
why would you? This would be my approach. First of all, I'm down there. I'm trying everything I can to resuscitate him. I'm on the phone begging them to give me some sort of guidance that might help. I'm begging them to get there as soon as I can. I'm saying, please take this truck and figure out what was wrong with it, because I don't want this to ever happen to anyone else. Autopsy, yes, of course. I want to understand what happened here. Like, by the way, if this was faulty, yes, I'm not thinking lawsuit. I'm thinking my son just died. But like, if this car, is faulty, my son died, I want to understand how and all of that. Clothing, yes, like, keep that as evidence. That might help tell the story. Like, the fact that you're sort of saying no thanks to all of that, pretty suspicious.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Flag.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then once that evidence is gone, it's gone, And
Has anybody ever heard of them destroying clothes?
No.
By the way, I was just gonna say, don't you usually like get the stuff back as a family member? I don't know. I've never been like the front person when somebody has
That's
passed away.
Good point.
You know,
I think
like-
you
at
can
first they
request
said
it.
that they gave them back to the investigator. And
And then
then
they were like, no, they.
she's like, no, we didn't get them from there. And then she
Well, it
went
said it went to the funeral home, and then they were like, no, we never
So,
got it from the hospital. Like, whatever.
I'll- hospital,
I'll give you
yeah.
guys a little back. So I've had more than one friend or family member that's passed away in a motorcycle accident.
Mm-hmm.
And every piece of their belongings was given back in a bag. Now there's warning given, hey, this is contaminated. If you're okay with receiving it, we have their what they were carrying on them at the time, along with clothing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
These are
all-
not murder. These
Yeah.
are
Right,
not
right.
suspicious
Yeah,
deaths.
these are accidents, which this was pointed accident. So the 2 motorcycle accidents I know of where both the people perished in the accident, everything that was on their person was given back to the family member. And there was a caveat that, hey, this is going to be hard to look at. If you want us to get rid of it, we can, but it's everything they had on them at the time.
Right. I was going to say, I feel like it would just automatically go back to the family members. Like, do you want this? Great. No, then we'll take care of it for you. But do you want
Yeah.
it? Because somebody
Yeah.
might want it for one reason or another.
Well, mom wanted it.
Yeah. Well, yeah. For her, it was for an investigation. But some, it might be just sentimental. Like, I want to have a piece of something that they were last in, like the baseball that was taken by the dumb coach. Sorry.
That's another example of the public
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
the town. I mean,
Mhm.
yeah, I just
That's just another degree of callousness that was how this was handled by people around it.
Yeah.
or
Everybody.
side taking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, bias, I think, is probably
Yeah.
a good. Yeah.
Wow.
Rest
well,
in peace, Grant.
Yes. Thanks
We have hope.
for your weigh in on this. And
Hey, I mean, let's put it out there. If you were the guys that were on the scene when all this went down, how about come out? I mean, this is a small community. It's a small rural community. You guys be the game changer in solving this. So
I
Yeah.
would be willing to bet that some people would be willing to look the other way if there was something that you were involved in. If you're willing to come forward in some way, shape, or form, that maybe they would be lenient on you because we can finally know answers. Clearly, I don't know that.
It did
But-
happen in July 2020 also.
Oh, 2020. Oh, you were right.
Yeah,
Okay.
so Emery was correct that it was 5
I
years
somewhat
ago.
recently listened to this episode.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
That's true.
He knows more than we do.
I'm not saying that this is how these things end up, but people that are around these things tend to end up towards the end of the life having to get this off their chest. So
Yeah.
this might be something we have to wait a very long time to get answers on. But if somebody wants to give this mother the peace that she's looking for, might be a nice gift to come forward.
No, it would absolutely be a nice gift.
Mm-hmm.
There's no coincidences in murder.
Nope.
Just going to say
Mhm.
that.
Yep.
It's my final.
No, you always say that. You always say
There's
that.
no coincidences in
Mhm.
murder.
All right. Well, I guess we're ready to put this one to rest for now. Right?
Yeah.
And move on. Okay. All right. So then we'll be in here in a second for the next one.
Okay, so the next case that we are going to be talking about, the next very tragic case, is the case of Mark Himebaugh. This is his disappearance. This is an unsolved case. He was 11, a cute little 11-year-old fireball of a redhead.
Our kids' age.
I know. Oh, see? Don't do that. Don't do that to me. Cannot. Excuse me. He lived in a small town in New Jersey on the shore. went out to watch a bonfire in the afternoon. What, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, November of 1991, just before Thanksgiving. Never came home. And the circumstances surrounding his disappearance have gotten a lot of attention, and there's a lot of controversy on this person and the last sighting of him and the accuracy of that. Suspiciously, one shoe of his was found on the beach in front of his home. Footprints of his that ended at a road, indicating that he might have gotten into a car. We have sexual assault allegations involved in this case. We have a serial offender involved in this case. So we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about it all. We don't know where he is. He's never been found. We can't prove that he's been murdered. However, it is highly deemed, it's not a cold case, which I think is really interesting. I just looked it up today to see what it was like allocated, and it's just allocated as an unsolved missing child disappearance, which I love because, once it's a cold case, it gets put on a shelf.
You said something about that in the episode, I think, about how they said that they don't classify it a cold case for some reason, and I can't remember now what it was.
Well, I don't know either. I think just because it's gotten a lot of attention. So there's so if you listen to the episode, you have to listen to the episode. Run, seriously, go. There was a book that came out about it, which I read, which I had like a love-hate relationship with this book, but the person who wrote the book was an investigator on his case. He's retired now, and I am on his Facebook page, which is like missing Mark Himebaugh, where is Mark? And he posts like every 3 days, even now. And this happened in 1991. So like he is tirelessly fighting with Mark's mother to get answers on this case. So I just think maybe that's why it's not a cold case. But this is one of those cases where I think we have 97 pieces of the puzzle. And we need 3 more.
Oh,
and
that's what it was. That's what you said, that it wasn't classified because they have an idea of what happened, but they can't prove it.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of ideas.
So it's there's a lot of theories. Probably are still somebody's always actively trying to get to be able to get the proof for it. But
yeah.
It's always pretty interesting too when there's like a investigator who had a long career and retired and over that time covered so many different cases, but like one sticks with them. And I imagine when it's a kid, like involving a kid, it probably often kind of sticks that way. And then when you feel like you're so close, like, and you should get there, I imagine that kind of haunts you. I was going to say in a good way. I don't know that haunting is a good way, but, that you feel like, gosh, unfinished business, right? So, yeah, good for him for keeping the energy up on it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I will say the book is really detailed, which is like a good thing with permission. There's just so many issues that I don't love about it. We can talk about it. So Mark, you can talk about it. You guys can talk about it.
No, go ahead.
No, I talked for a whole hour about it already.
I remember you saying that it was like there was some hearsay in there, like somebody said this happened, but they only told him, and they have not come forward to say it.
Can we get just a 30,000 foot recap for everybody listening? I know they're going to go back and listen to the episode, but just for context, just real high level, 2 seconds. Like, do you want us to just run it through it really quick, high level?
You only have 2 seconds. Go. Time's up.
He's talking to you.
All right. Yeah. So, kid with some emotional issues.
Special needs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Went out to investigate a fire on the beach. Witnesses saw a gentleman yell at him from a vehicle.
On his way back.
That vehicle doubled back to his direction. He disappeared. And then after the fact, one of the people who was also allegedly, or it was alleged, or no, it's confirmed, right? another victim of the SA that occurred with him came forward
It was
later.
alleged.
Yeah, allegedly came forward after and talked about being forced to have relations with him, and that while people watched and his dad was
And
involved,
photos and videos were taken.
photos and videos were taken, and
Allegedly.
and at some point in the last situation where he was being assaulted with this other person, he said, "Enough's enough. I'm going to file a report. I'm done with this. It's over."
That was days before he disappeared.
Which was days before he disappeared. And this gentleman with the favorite name, what's his name?
Butt cabbage.
Yeah, Butt Cabbage.
Thomas Butkovich is
Yeah.
his actual
Yeah,
name.
we're gonna stick with Butt Cabbage.
But we like Butt Cabbage.
Anyway, so this guy, the sketch, like, it's to it. Like, you couldn't ask for a better sketch for
So
a
the
match.
sketch is the eyewitness that. So the eyewitness that saw this man with long hair and glasses yelling at Mark as he was walking back from the beach. There were two of them. And they got a really good look at him, I will say, because
All directions.
all directions.
Right side, left side, face forward.
And they did a police sketch, and it is phenomenal.
Spot on. Spot on.
It's a
that guy.
spitting image of Butkovich.
Yeah, I think I say in the episode, it looks like they took a picture of Thomas Butkovich and drew this sketch from that
Now,
photo.
forgive me
Aside from
'cause-
the fact that it had more straight hair than curly, but
Yeah.
everything else is spot on.
So
Yeah.
let's go back to this, because Butkovich, was he involved in the ring of people that were watching these sexual assaults occurring? Was he a part of that?
So
She alleged, but did he go to jail for that, or is it someone else?
So he's a known sexual predator, child predator for sure, and went to prison later for charges. The dad was in a barbershop quartet. So
Okay.
Mark's dad.
So strike one for the dad.
Yes.
You could start there. The
My
bow tie.
outfits are cute.
No.
This is
All right.
1991.
So I remember where I was going now, because I was trying to look for the 30,000 foot view.
But Butkovich also, there was somebody that he was with that came
Well, that's what
forward
I
that
was-
said he told.
Okay,
Well, that's
first of all,
time out. 'Cause I got what I needed. I was looking for that 30,000 foot
Yeah.
view to kind of.
finish this for the listeners. So the Butkovich was connected in some type of way to another person in the barbershop quartet. And a sex worker that Butkovich hired came forward later and said that he saw a video of Mark, of a child that resembled Mark.
Mhm.
And when Mark disappeared and he found out about it, which I think was like months later, he made the connection and was like, I think I've seen this kid on this like predators
So
in his home.
this is kind of the Mark was, his dad was video recording him having sex with his girlfriend. These other creepers were involved watching it. He said, "Enough, I'm going-"
11-year-olds. Ugh.
Yeah,
Yeah, they're
I'm going to, and they were also allegedly raping the girl and videoing and watching this behavior. Then he said, "I've had enough. I'm going to the authorities." Dad heard about it. Butkovich was in this group, had confessed to a male escort that I've had fantasies about assaulting and killing young boys.
Mhm.
Upon his arrest, saying, "Well, it's just a fantasy. I didn't live it out." But he also is in jail for another sexual assault. And this is
So
where
he did live it out at some point.
yeah,
For
he
sure.
lived it out. But this is my thing. So, one, there's eyewitness that has Butkovich at the location. The only thing that shows that he wasn't there was a credit card run, which again just proves his credit card wasn't with him. The someone like that who's talked about it has clearly thought about it and planned it. So there was probably a plan for where the body was going to go. You're right by the ocean. It's a lot of options right there, but it sounds like this is a fantasy this guy had been working on and talking about. I don't know, the whole thing, it goes back to suspicion. Like, he says, "I've had enough. I'm going to the police." A couple days later, he's gone. A guy that's involved in this sex trafficking, I would just call it sex trafficking ring. This sex trafficking ring was a part of it, somehow implicated, but also had a connection back to the father. So there's a lot of connected parts here, and it just seems like this was a very calculated maneuver. And there was money put up. And again, this goes back to like the case we just talked about before, where the father, how could you be so callous to the death of your son? He misappropriated funds that were being set aside to try to find his son.
Yeah.
Like no father who's lost a child is going to take money for the intent of going to that. You're going to put all your money to it and then some. So why would he be misappropriating money for that unless he already knew what happened and it was just money for him to spend? So I don't know. It was long-winded, but
So
what the
I
bottom line is, a
appreciate
lot of people belong in a wood chipper.
You had to get that in.
We knew he was going to say that.
I appreciate the 30,000 foot view, but I think we probably missed a few details. So I'll just try to fill some of those gaps. So one, the mother and the father of this boy are not together. They were not together at the time. She asked him to leave because there were allegations from their own family members, like nieces, of inappropriate conduct. So we kind of know prior to this entire event that he's a little bit weird. To Wes's point, he's in a barbershop quartet. Like, who actually does that? So you can
You're
draw
insulting somebody out there.
conclusions. I'm just kidding. I'm sure it's a healthy community of wonderful people, but also I think well documented sort of kind of strained, not very affectionate, loving relationship between father and son. And in fact, the right prior to this, prior to his death, the father had his disappearance. The father had sort of given him a hug when he was dropping the son back off, and that was remarkable to the mother because that was the first time she'd seen that level of affection, which is just, I think, telling in terms of the type of relationship they had. And then Wes, like you said, I mean, and we've said earlier, your son disappears. That becomes the most important thing in your world forever, especially until it's solved. And then even after that, it is probably the most important thing in your world forever in a tragic manner. So whenever you kind of see, just instances of maybe like not being all in proactive, or, setting up a kind of a fund or a foundation and then using the money in ways that aren't supporting that. I mean, it all is just indicative of like, that's not a natural behavior. That's not what we would do if anything ever happened to our kids. So I think, and anytime there's kids involved on this kind of stuff, it just kind of doubles the tragedy of it, for sure.
I completely agree. I mean, like, that's gross. Regardless of whether we want to say anything else that happened before Mark's disappearance or during Mark's disappearance, the misappropriation of funds for a foundation that he established to find answers and justice for his son, he stole from them. That's gross. That's a character situation that you can't fake being that kind of a guy. And that's really gross. And I think if you just start there and go backwards, it's a lot. It's a lot. There's also the situation, Christy, I don't know if you want to speak on this, about like the whole shoe on the beach.
Oh gosh, yes, that like drove me crazy because it's like, so he's walking on the beach and then all of a sudden there's a shoe on the beach. And then there's
his
footprints.
sneaker.
Yeah, there's a sneaker. And then there's footprints of basically like 1 foot, 1 sock, 1 foot, 1 sock, or shoe and sock, right? And then at some point there's just 2 sock prints.
Right.
So he took the other shoe off but held on to that one, but didn't hold on to the first one that he took off.
Right.
So what was that about? Number one, I know you said that he had like broken his foot and he just got out of a cast, so maybe it was bothering him, but still, why would he not pick it up?
Right. And then I also want to say too that at the end of that trail of the like shoe, sneaker, sock, and then sock, then it ends at a road, and dogs traced his scent and footprints. And then it ends as if he got in a car.
Right.
Or he got on the road and walked on the road and they couldn't find his scent.
But I feel like they would have had his sense. And he was
agree.
walking by himself, by the way. I know, Wes, you have your
Wes
that.
might have something to say, very subtly trying to get our attention.
Go ahead.
I think there's two things here. So they talked about him having issues with things not being the way he likes them. So I've had two different things about the
His
shoe.
OCD, yeah.
Yeah, he had a lot of
So
OCD.
he's on the beach. He's wearing shoes with socks. He got sand in his shoe, and it wasn't a feeling that he appreciated. So
Yeah,
he
I
got
see that.
agitated to the point where he took his shoe off, and it throws a wrench in everything because you're looking at it like, why has he got one shoe on? But he also, if things weren't his way, he could throw temper tantrums and throw things down. So he gets something in his shoe and has a moment where he has a breakdown and rips his shoe off and starts walking with it because the sand's aggravating him.
And he's 11.
And he's 11.
Right.
But-
No, I
but
get that part. It was the
but
leaving the shoe. But
Right.
but
Well,
that
there's
makes
two-
sense if he
But
just was
there's
like
two things. So I thought about this, like trying to make the shoe an isolated incident. It could be something more to do with the OCD level of things. I know I'm slightly OCD, just a little confession. So just a scotch. So like I could see taking a shoe off because of seeing and like being frustrated and maybe even throwing said shoe because I was aggravated with it, whatever. But then the other side
Wes
of it
is
too is
also 11.
And a shoe thrower,
it's generous.
allegedly.
But the other thing too is like if let's just say this, what's the guy's name? I want to say it wrong.
Butkovich?
Okay.
You can say
Butkovich.
it wrong. We're not
Yeah.
pronouncing anything correctly
So
when it comes to this.
Butkovich, let's just say you're gonna like they saw him doubling back, right? So let's just say you're gonna grab an 11-year-old who's a little bit wiry, gonna try to get away, knows who this guy is because of the interaction with the father, possibly have seen him at one of these things that was going on. And if he tackled the kid and the kid's trying to get away and you wrap a kid up, just like you would in football, if the kid's trying to get away, when you wrap up, the shoe comes off and then he's trying to escape. So he doesn't really care about the shoe.
Well,
So maybe
but
there's
there's
an
no
attempt
other
to-
footprints.
so his first shoe was
Yeah, but
like
I'm
at
not-
the beginning of his path.
Yeah, but
And
what-
then it was
what the-
just his
what was
footprints.
what was the vehicle though?
Oh
It was
gosh.
a van.
Well,
No, I
but
don't think it was-
the thing is that his first shoe that he left was at the beginning of his trail.
Yeah.
And it was left. And then he walked by himself, according to the footprint trails. And then they lost the scent. So it was at the end of the trail, and the shoe was at the beginning of the trail.
Was there any definitive that he was actually walking and not like his gait didn't indicate a run?
No, they specifically said it was not running. Yeah, they specifically.
Yeah, and it was
there's
like
no
within
other
a time frame too, because I remember saying to you, "How do they know what time frame?" And it was because there was like nothing blown in it and whatever. But yeah, so I agree with you that maybe it would fall off, except for the progression of everything. I don't think that's when he was. I think he was grabbed at the end, but he probably did get mad about the sand and threw his shoe. You're right, like he just threw his own fit. And nobody was there to catch it, and because normally somebody might be with him to pick up the shoe behind him when he threw the fit. You know, that first shoe.
Well, I think as it relates to the shoe, obviously if I walk a path and I disappear, and along that path you find one of my shoes, like that shoe feels really important, right? But we're not sure if it is or not, I guess is sort of your point. What is important about that shoe, though, is it's an LA Gear shoe. And I just want to give a shout out to LA Gear. For those younger listeners, you're familiar with like Nike, Adidas, Puma, but LA Gear was a very popular basketball shoe back in the day. And in fact, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar Akeem Olajuwon, and even Karl Malone wore LA gear in competition as NBA
Oh, who knew?
players.
LA Gear was
Yeah.
the oosh.
Yeah,
I
LA
can
gear.
smell it
this,
here.
this is the one thing I do know. If Emery goes missing and there's a shoe left behind, something awful is
Oh,
happening.
100%.
Oh, awful. He's
Because-
not
Not
leaving
a
his
red
shoes
herring.
behind.
Left behind.
not
No
a
speaker left behind.
It's a
Yeah.
clue.
Yep.
Yeah.
It is a clue.
Definitely a clue.
Absolutely.
He's dropping breadcrumbs if it's
Hey,
left behind.
we,
Yeah.
we may leave DNA. Emery's leaving us.
Yeah, no
Yeah.
shoe ever left behind. No temper tantrums where you throw a shoe away.
Never.
Mm-mm.
But I think also just in the way that you describe Mark, right? Mark.
Mhm.
Special needs, maybe kind of a unique kid,
Handful. He's a
a
handful.
little bit of a handful, but
With good
like
reason. Like look
Yeah.
at the abuse.
He
Like
had
yeah.
some trauma.
you know.
Mhm.
but then there's stories embedded in there about how he went and spent the weekend with his dad. His dad had like this kind of, I guess, funky apartment above kind of a mall, outdoor mall kind of place, and he wanted to go. And the reason he wanted to go spend the weekend with his dad, which probably was not his favorite thing to go do, was so he could go shopping for a present for his mom's birthday.
Such a
Thank
sweet.
you
And
for
then his
bringing
sweet
that up.
little girlfriend, who I can only imagine having a special needs cousin of my own, and if she ever had a boyfriend, like how sweet and precious that would be to sort of look at and know about their relationship. And she sort of joined him to kind of go shopping for his mom, which is just like really, really cool. She, given what we also may know about some of the other parts of the story, like maybe she was there to protect him or to not have him bear the entire burden of the experiences that they may have been put through together. And so anyway, I think it's this kid was treated, regardless of whether or not his dad had any involvement in his disappearance, was treated as something less than the boy that you wrap your arms around and lift up and give a kiss to all the time.
Yes.
Didn't
and he had an older
understand-
brother who was
yeah.
treated very differently.
Okay, yeah,
Like,
and
his
didn't
older brother was like
understand.
sports star, and
Right.
like the dynamic between dad and older brother and him was apparent that
Right.
he had a favorite.
And so like you think about all that, and then you think, but in the end, here's a kid who probably entered into a really uncomfortable environment being with his dad at all on the weekend, and did that so that he could go shopping for his mom's birthday. So I think it's like you can see some of the sweetness in him just through that kind of detail, and it just breaks your heart even more when you think about the whole person, and then what he was sort of enduring, and maybe what he endured post disappearance.
I know. I can't
yeah.
even imagine what happened
Mm-hmm.
once whoever took him. Because he didn't just walk off and walk. I mean, he would have been found if he just like got confused and walked off somewhere. He'd have been found somehow.
Well,
Someone took him.
So
Yes.
what level was Butt Cabbage actually interviewed? Like around this specifically? I know he's serving time for other sexual assaults on I think minors, but like how hard was he actually looked at for this?
But
He was a named suspect.
Because this is the thing too, like the dad, I hate to be the detail guy because like Henry comes with this very poignant part, and I keep thinking about the details that drive me nuts, and it's like,
That's why we're here.
yeah, but it's something that bothers me. It's like the dad has an association with this guy. He's a known sex offender.
Loose.
It's a loose.
Look,
Yeah,
okay,
okay.
It's a loose association.
Again, back to the barbershop quartet connection, right?
Yeah, I mean, so but the flip side of that is like the dad, the loose association, this guy who clearly had fantasies of murdering, or not clearly, but allegedly a sex worker who had everything to lose, by the way. Like you're doing something illegal as a sex worker, you're gonna come forward because it weighed on your
100%.
conscience enough to say, I need to tell somebody this guy's got a fantasy about killing a kid. And the dad, knowing that his son is gonna blow the whistle gives him basically the hug of death. It wasn't the kiss of death. It was a hug of death, and like knowing that I've interacted with a guy that has a fantasy around this. This fixes my problems. It fulfills his fantasy. Maybe profited from it financially.
And
Allegedly,
he's a
who knows?
secondary
Yeah.
son to him. Like
Right.
he has this like sports star sons, and
So,
then he's
I
got this
just-
one son. who
I just
he-
feel like there's too many things that are connected that for whatever reason they just couldn't put a bow on it and say the dad was involved, Buttigieg did it, or Buddha
Buttigieg.
cabbage.
Wow.
Jeez.
Oh, new name
That
now.
was a slip.
Butt cabbage.
Butkovich.
Slightly Freudian.
Butkovich.
Butkovich. There's something there between all of them that just feels like there's a connection there that nobody put it all together, and it just
Okay, I can see that, but so do you think that this guy was then just driving around waiting for his opportunity? Because this seemed like how would he have known he was going to go and check out a fire that day and then walk around and whatever?
I think the timing is too coincidence. So maybe he was in the area because he was there for that purpose. He was there to get this kid. He just lucked out that he happened to be going to the beach to look for this. He probably didn't go into it with a scenario of, oh, this kid's going to go look for this bonfire. No, it just teed up like as a happenstance.
Okay.
So you think he was watching him, waiting for the right time?
I think he went with the intent of where's my opportunity. These serial
Well, remember,
killers
he
and
lived in Philly. Like, he
Yeah, but this
was
is
far away.
right. But again, this is a fantasy. This is somebody who's being driven by a fantasy that he's confessed to others. It's a sexually gratifying fantasy that, the dad in the barbershop quartet, whatever loose connection they had, he was in Philly and the dad was there. There was some connection there.
Well-
He went with my assumption or allegedly is that he went with the intent of if the opportunity presents itself, and a lot of this is probably opportunity based, I'm going to put myself in a situation where the opportunity may arise for me to live this fantasy out and accomplish what someone's asked me to do.
See, I totally disagree with this.
Well, can I say so? Okay, that he had gotten back from his dad's that day, right? That was the
Well-
day he went.
No. He went to his dad's that weekend. And this was so he got back Sunday. And that was the weekend in which he allegedly they had been sexually
Right.
exploited. And he was overheard as saying, I'm going to put a stop to it. I think this was Tuesday.
Oh, okay.
Or something
Because I was
like that.
thinking,
So it was
was
like
this
a
the day
day or
that
so
dad
later.
dropped him off back at
No.
home and he was like, my kid's going to be home, just sit
No,
there
because
and wait.
he went to school.
Okay, right.
He went
okay.
to school. He came home from the
Mhm.
bus, and him and his friend were like, "Oh, there's a fire. Let's see what's going on."
Yeah, he's
We'll
from
meet you."
far away for it to be like a happenstance.
Yeah, I want to say I completely disagree
Philly
with
to
you.
Jersey
I
is
think
not that far.
it was like an hour or more. I looked it up at.
you
back in
said
the day,
60
it's on-
miles. It
Yeah,
would
it's
still
like
be
a-
quite a distance for
Yeah, I don't think that it was a crime of opportunity. I 100% think that Mark was targeted, for sure. I
I
think
didn't
that
say it was opportunity. I said that he was given the opportunity to fulfill a fantasy by the father, and he went there with the intent of, I'm going to find a moment where this works for me.
I think the fire was staged. This is just my opinion.
Oh,
Okay,
That's much.
This
because
is
they
my
knew
opinion.
he would want to go hang out and see
They
it.
called him Curious George
Mm-hmm.
because anything that was going on at the beach, Mark was there 100%. I think the fire was started. I think they thought Mark would go. And I think that was their opportunity to get him out of his house. I think it was I do think it was happenstance that mom ended up, because if you listen back to the episode, she kind of took her
She had an
friend
errand to
somewhere.
run, yeah,
She went on an
yeah.
errand, which made it a longer time that he was noticed to be
Mhm.
missing.
Mm-hmm.
But they started a fire. This is a really tiny town, like our
1,000
river
people
house town.
got it.
Yeah, river house town. So if there's a fire in the town, there's going to be detours. They're closing roads. I think it was staged. I genuinely do. I think they lured him out, or at least created chaos in the town. That's my opinion.
Mhm.
I think the shoe is a red herring. In my opinion, I don't think he was ever on that beach. I think they
Or
ended
you
up
think
taking,
somebody else like walked that pretending to be him?
I think they took his shoes, and like that would make him have a scent because his shoes have the scent.
Well,
You're
but
making like
the trail would then have to have the
I
scent for the
think I
dogs to
think
keep
I think
going.
you're
If
making
that
criminals a lot smarter than what they are.
Maybe.
I don't
I just think it was
know.
planned.
I don't know. Um, I I don't think there's a reason we need to say whether or not a fire was caused on purpose to create a scene or not, or whether he walked on the beach or not. The reality is he's gone. He disappeared, and there was a known, sexual predator, pedophile who may have been seen, in that location, and that he was already sort of involved in kind of a trafficking type ring that included video, and
And
so
also his dad,
and
possibly.
also his dad, and so all of that is just freaking absolutely terrible.
Mm-hmm.
If it wasn't Butkovich that took him, he has a lot of explaining to do, and
Mm-hmm.
like there needs to be just a deeper look at that. I don't know kind of what can be determined from footsteps and a shoe and all of that, or who started the fire or not. I don't know what those would exactly determine, but if this sort of known sexual predator was literally in the area at the same time as this kid when he disappeared, then like that's super problematic. And again, it's yeah, when I hear about anything involving kids, but like sex trafficking of kids, like it's just so kind of unimaginable, I don't know. I mean, this is kind of yeah, there's only so much of this type of stuff you can listen to, and
Yeah.
Beth, you read through the book, and one of the things you said was, there were parts of it that were very graphic and detailed and explicit, and that's traumatic unto itself just to read. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I mean, I think uh, kind of like the case we talked about before. It seems like there's a lot of evidence. How does it all connect? What's the story? What are the you almost wish you could kind of be um, inside the investigation to sort of understand all
At
the
the
ways
scene,
they
at
sort
the
of looked at this, like who's the dad communicating with in the days leading up to this? Who was he communicating with after? What connection might he actually have to the production of videos? There's just so much that maybe a lot of that's covered in the book, but those are the types of things where it's like, man, I hope somebody was going after this really, really hard to try to piece it all together. And like you said, I hope they don't stop trying to piece it together.
Mm-hmm.
How long is Butkovich in jail for right now?
He's life.
He's got life.
Yeah.
Mm.
So people with paperwork like that usually don't last long. So,
This happened in 1991.
Yeah, I was gonna say he's been in there a long
now,
time.
wait a minute. He wasn't arrested then. He was arrested later. I think it was like 1996 or something. He was
But
arrested.
still, he's
like,
been in there a long time.
yeah, he's
still.
a cool 19 years at this point, if
Yeah.
accurate.
He's
Although
like-
I don't know that we've looked up, like, is he still in there? Did somebody kill
No,
him?
he
Like,
is.
he is. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, people with paperwork like that, they do a special kind of time, which they deserve. But again, like you hear about these deathbed confessions, like I think one of the things he said is you'll never find anything like that in my house as part of the interview.
Yeah.
Like at some point, prisoners have a lot of influence on how his time is served as well. So maybe
I think
it
it's
comes out
Mark's.
sooner than later.
It's Mark's dad that I want to hear
Right. Yeah.
talk
I mean, I
publicly.
take if Butkovich had anything to do with it, I take solace in the fact that he's already in jail for life. That's fine. But like, if there was other people involved, like Dad, I want justice to be served on him as
And
well.
where is Mark? That's my thing.
Right. Where is he?
Where
Yeah.
is he? Like,
Mhm.
he's gone. His mom does not. Can you imagine?
Those are the ones I hate
Our
the most. It's like we have no
11-year-old.
idea.
No, I can't even think about it. But that's the other thing. If you look at the property It's right on the mouth of the Delaware Bay. Like, it's right there.
Mhm.
It was
Like-
Jersey.
Yeah, well, the Delaware Bay is right in front of there.
Oh,
So
okay.
Mhm.
if this guy had really thought about it and had an agenda, like, there's big wide ocean out there.
You think
So,
he's in the water?
I don't know.
But you'd
This-
think they would have looked, though. Didn't
They did. They did.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm not
Because
saying
they thought he drowned.
Right.
That was
Right.
because the shoe was found on the beach. That was like the first piece of evidence that they
Mhm.
found. And so they were like, he drowned. He's in
Mhm.
the ocean. So there were massive searches for him. For real. Like the town
this
came out.
is the thing. Like I said, I think this guy had a fantasy that he confessed to other people about this is something he wanted to do. So he clearly had a plan. If this was something he's fantasized about, he's probably fantasized the details of it. I hate to see this, and like you hate to crush hope, and I hope they do give closure to the mother. But if this guy was as sick as we know he is, and he's doing life for it, he planned this out. So he had a plan for where the body was going to end up.
Yeah.
So there's probably a location that was already established, set up, probably something to act quickly where wouldn't require a lot of work to finish what they were doing, or dispose of in a very discreet way where
You don't think that he'll ever give that up, even though he's in jail right now?
we talk about deathbed confessions, right? Like, he finds Jesus at the end or whatever and decides he needs to confess his sins. There's that chance. The other side of it too is like,
I just don't know why he wouldn't. He's in there for life now. Like, he's already in for life.
yeah, but
Well,
how many appeals does a lifer get? I mean, I'm sure he hasn't exhausted all of them. You get 10 to 12 appeals, and
I
Supreme
don't think
Court.
he has an opportunity for parole.
It's been a while. I feel like
Yeah.
maybe he has, but although I don't know, the Menendez haven't.
All I
been
can
like-
say is, like, for people like this, I hope it's a very long, painful lifetime
Mhm.
because there's nothing awful enough for that person.
Yeah, this was a little boy.
Yeah.
Like a little boy.
Yeah.
11. I mean, cute as a button. They called him Curious George because, his mom called him that because he was just so
It's definitely
interested in.
Fargo material.
Oh my gosh, again.
Back to the
With
wood
the wood
chipper.
chipper.
I mean, I'm serious. Like,
He's
there's
hitting
just
the table. He's
no.
he's-
I'm telling you, like, there's just
hammering
not.
it in.
Life is not enough for these kind of people, and I don't care how violent it is. It's never enough for someone like this.
Yeah.
What
So-
is
Allegedly.
what's super disgusting because it sounds like the connection to kind of a trafficking ring sounds like it's a pretty solid kind of theory or maybe reality. And when you think about a sex trafficking ring, it isn't like one person who's just sick and disgusting and twisted. It's like a network of people who communicate past humans, past videos, plan to meet up. Like it is
And
just
consume
absolutely
this type of
awful.
content.
And you sort of wonder how those networks don't get taken down. Because these aren't like super sharp people. Right? Like you said, like this Butkovich guy, is he a genius? Like, I mean, they're terrible and idiots. Like, you just hope that these rings get just disassembled constantly. And I don't know. I mean, it's not like a thing I track, but it's just gross. It's just disgusting and horrible
Can I
that
say
there's so many
something?
people involved. Yeah.
Let me just say this: like, there's got to be a digital, like, people like this. There's a digital platform that there's videos involved. There's a footprint out there that somebody can find.
But this was 1991.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
but that doesn't go away. Like, the internet was probably in its infancy, but like, I
Right.
guarantee you,
What
There-
were you doing in 1991? Do you remember? No, you don't, because it's not on Facebook.
right. Yeah, exactly. These
I do
were
wanna-
VHS tapes.
Right.
Yeah.
In Poland.
wow.
But I do want to say, I just want to be really clear about like where I got that information. So it's from the book who this investigator wrote. And so Mark's little girlfriend, who you mentioned a couple of times, Emery, who was involved in these alleged sexual assaults, came forward to him as he was writing the book. So her name was changed. She's not named publicly. So she has not come forward to law enforcement to say Mark's father was sex trafficking me
Mhm.
and Mark. So I just want to be very clear about that. Which is why I have a love-hate relationship with the book, because I'm like, this is really great information that kind of puts a lot of pieces together.
It's not corroborated.
It's
It's
not
hearsay.
corroborated, and it's not public information, and it's
Mhm.
not in police reports, and it's not a part of the investigation because she didn't come forward to law enforcement. So
Mhm.
I want to be clear about
So
that.
here's a really dark take, and not to take this in a really awful place, but here's a detective who wrote a book and espoused some theories, had someone come forward, wasn't corroborated, stays on social media to keep it in front of the public to continue promoting a book. I'm not saying that's what happened. I mean, we'd like to think that this was the one that got away that he has to solve. But is there fame, notoriety, and money involved to corrupt the conversation?
I mean, he's not that famous from it, honestly.
I don't know.
This
No.
book probably sold
Right.
14 copies.
And
How's
Beth
that
was
do?
one of them.
Yeah.
Literally. And I gave it away.
Gotcha. So it's not on the Amazon bestseller.
No. It wasn't even all that great. And it's very short. No,
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of books out there that like people write on cases that you're like, well, it gives great information, but it was like, oh, I wrote this and I put it out and sold it.
yeah,
to
it's like a
7
self-published
people.
type.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I appreciate that he did it. I think I genuinely believe that he has a heart for, I think he's close with the mother and he has a heart for this case. And it was like you said, Emery, you do how many cases a part of your career and you just have that one that
Mhm.
like sticks with you and becomes a part of your fabric
Mm-hmm.
and you can't unwoven that or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
can't unsew it. So I genuinely think that's what happened. And so I appreciated the read. Take
Yeah.
it for what it will. I did not love it. But it's a really sad case. And where is
Yeah.
he? That's my thing. Is like, let's
Yeah.
bring him home. Let's bring him home.
Let's know something. Yeah. This is
let's
just
just-
yet another one we just want to find the answer to so
Yeah.
that we can close the book on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This young gent.
Mm-hmm.
Curious George.
Yeah.
Curious Mark.
Thanks again for all your input, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys are
This is fun.
fun.
This is
What is-
fun.
You're making my brain move
So
around in all kinds of
this
places.
is fun, but I don't know how you guys do this. Like,
I know.
Thank you.
Wes, we couldn't record with you every week.
I appreciate you saying that, actually.
I can't do. Like, I really appreciate what you guys have done with this. I know this is kind of winding down for you guys, but it takes a special person to look at this week in and week out and maintain sanity while looking at our beautiful children who are safe and happy and healthy and be able to dive into this world and come out normal on the other side because I
Have we
looked
come
at
out
two-
normal on the other side?
Well,
We
yeah.
don't do
Sometimes.
kids a lot.
Yeah. I can just say this, like, it's just, as a father, there's a certain thing you just don't cross, and it's your kids, and it's other people's kids. So,
Well, that's what I'm
If-
saying. As a human,
well, I mean,
this is
beyond
rough.
that, like, for example, if your kids are in my house, they're my kids, and
Mhm.
something happens, it's whatever it takes to make things right. Right. So, I just can't imagine being in a situation as a parent and then you guys having to dive into it, knowing our kids are safe and comfortable and happy in their home. Like, it's a hard reality to think about. So, but I think it's important. I think it's really cool what you guys have done over your career, and Beth's stopping me from tapping the table now. But I think it's really cool what you guys have done. You brought attention and light to cases that needed light and attention, if nothing else, for the family's sake. And, hopefully something good came out of all this.
Yeah, Wes, I might piggyback on that. I don't know if you recall 5 years ago when these two decided that they would start a podcast. They were not unique at that time. Probably a lot of podcasts started in 2020 when we were all kind of locked in our houses or our closets, and it was a way for people to stay connected and stay active and put their mind to something. And so, but I mean, imagine take yourself back to that point in time and just what were you looking to do, and what did you think around how many episodes you would make, or how many people would listen, and 5 years later, you've been like completely consistent and steadfast with this. You've created a network of listeners where you don't even have to source any of your own stories. These listeners are appreciate hearing you. You take them through runs and long drives and workouts and all, probably house cleaning and bread making and all of these things,
Cancer
right?
treatments.
And they love you. And 250 episodes over 5 years. 5,000 followers who subscribe to you across all these different platforms. The thing I always say about that is, 5,000, it's not 1,000,000, it's not 2,000,000. Well, if 5,000 people were here right now, it would seem like a lot. And that's how many it is. 5,000, Wes, 663,000 listens.
Oh yeah.
663,000 listens. These two ladies, Canada, UK, Australia,
Yep.
South Africa, Ireland. Like, what in the heck? And here's what's really cool. This podcast will live forever because Wes said starting in 1991, your digital footprint was forever. I'm not sure it started back then, but it is real now.
AOL was
meaning,
there.
meaning more countries and more listeners and more people will continue to listen to you for years and years and years. It's super cool. So I'm really proud of you both. I mean, it's just incredible that you had this kernel of an idea, but not just that you had the kernel of idea, that you actually pursued it. That's hard to do. And then the fact that you stuck with it and it wasn't just like a 3-month novelty kind of thing is so cool. How many times do people have ideas but don't pursue them? How many times do people start something and not finish it? Always. They always do that.
I do it a lot.
I think you started this, you continued it, you've brought it to a really amazing end. And like Wes said, and I don't want to sort of echo you, but Wes, I think it's really important. Like I've listened to a lot of true crime. These two have spent like thousands of hours probably researching and telling stories about awful people doing awful things. And that takes a toll. It's not just, doesn't just take time. It takes a toll. And so thank you on behalf of all your listeners for making that investment in your listeners and each other. And it does matter. All of these stories being told over and over again, adding up to hundreds of thousands of listeners. You all know, like, things get solved, things change, outcomes change through people who are bold enough, willing enough, committed enough to tell a story. So I just think it's really cool what you've all done with this. It's pretty awesome, and we're lucky for many, many reasons to have you in our life, but we're also lucky to have been on this a couple times too. Wes, we're going to be famous now, so it's going to be cool.
Famous.
We're supposed to cry
for
until
the
the
first
last one.
time in 5 years.
I literally, I don't think I could say it any better, Emery, but I think the other piece too is like the amount of work that went into this. Like, I've watched Beth, she has a chair in the house that's like her research chair. The kids know it, the dog knows it, I know it. But literally, yellow legal pads for a case stacked up, FOIA requests, interviews with sheriffs, speaking to victims' families. This hasn't been a haphazard effort where you read someone else's work and delineated a story from it. You guys created your own story, you did your own research, you worked off others' material, but you did your own homework. And I think that's what really connected with a lot of listeners was, although they didn't see the stack of yellow notepads that I've seen filled out laying around our house, they felt that work was put in. And I think the families felt that work was put in. You know, you think about like and I know a handful of cases, I'm not the best, but like Blaze's family, for example, his story's out there and people know it. And there's other families too where cases have been looked at again because of the work you guys put in. And to Emery's point, I don't think I can say it any better than Emery, but I'm really proud of you guys. Like, you took something that was an idea and you turned it into something that touched a lot of people. You helped a lot of families. And you brought light to cases that might never see the light of day again. And whether it changed the outcome or not, that story's out there. And to Emery's point, just the fact that we're still talking about it, you guys are talking about it, maybe one person hears it and there's a spark of a conscience that says, I've got something I've got to tell somebody. Like, and you don't know if that's going to be 2 years from now where this lives in infamy. It could be 10 years from now. Somebody could be on their deathbed and be like, you know what? I owe these people closure. And maybe they heard it on your podcast. And then at the same time, you provided an amazing distraction for people in what's probably been one of the worst parts of the memorable part of our country. Like during COVID, people were locked in and isolated from friends and family. And you created a community where people could come together and listen to something that was different and an original take on something and an escape from what was an awful time in most people's lives. And it all came from your all's idea. And that's just amazing. And really thankful to witness that and be a part of it. And that you guys, and that the listeners wanted Emery and I on one of the last ones. Like, I wouldn't want to look at me on this. But you know what? I appreciate you guys including us in this. And to the listeners, thanks for wanting Emery and I on here. I think more than anything, like, we enjoy covering the case, but it's an opportunity for us to show appreciation for what you guys have done over the last 5 years and the hard work that's been put in and the late nights and the back and forth and juggling sick kids and sports schedules and all the things that are required for you guys to get together and put this show on for listeners. So kudos to you guys. I'm really proud of you. And I think it's been an amazing experience. Like, I'm on the outside of it, but I've been long-winded, but I got to tell this one story. Can I tell one story?
Oh, no.
Just one.
I mean,
So-
can we say no?
You can say no. I'm going to tell it anyway. You can hang up if you want.
He's not gonna hang up.
This was actually pretty cool. So this was like 3 years ago. We're on the Greenway, around the school. We're walking, and these three ladies walk by, and they turn around and be like, "Are you Beth?" And she's like, "Yeah." And they were listeners, and they wanted to get like a picture and talk to her. And I was like,
Oh.
"It's like, that's right. Wife's famous. She's got a podcast. People know who she is."
Okay.
Lots of North Carolina listeners.
I'm just saying, like, it was a really cool experience. Like, there's a lot of people that have reached out to Beth or that we've run into in our personal lives who've recognized what you guys have done. And I think it's really cool acknowledgement of your accomplishment.
Yeah. Okay. Now I have to. I feel
Okay.
like-
Good luck, Beth. You have to end this now.
I know.
All right.
Take us home, Beth.
Come on.
We love you, husbands. Thank you for supporting us. Thank you for looking at my cross face.
Yeah.
I feel like this is like our last episode.
It's not. It is not.
It's gonna get worse, you guys. But this was cool, and I didn't expect you both to bring us here to these tears and emotions. But I love it because you know what? This is what our podcasts are about. We have always been very emotionally invested in whatever case we do. We love to talk about victims. We love to give them a voice because they don't have one. I love that about us. I love that about you, Christy.
Stop
I'm
it. I'm
fine.
not talking.
I'm fine.
I'm not doing this.
Anyway.
I'm not doing this.
Thank you guys for joining us. What a weird Monday. This is 100 years long. We love you. Come find us on social media. We'll post pictures of these cases. We'll post pictures of our husbands. We have one more episode for you. March 31st. The final farewell. Final? I'm fine.
Uh-huh.
Final.
Is that the wine or tears?
Yep.
Both.
It's you. You and Emery did this to me. I'm doing great. So please join us for that. And never forget that we will always be here for you on your Mondays, whether we're in your ears or not. And always remember, the world is scary. People suck. Hide in your closets.